Meeting to order. This is the regularly scheduled planning board meeting for Monday, July the 11th. First item is approval of the agenda, but we do have one adjustment under new business. Item D, the zoning text amendment for multifamily dimensional standards and MIC. We're going to move that probably till next month. Matt did most of the research on this and he can't make it today. He's out sick. So
okay,
we'll move that one. And so what I'm looking for is a motion to approve the agenda and removing that item.
motion to approve the agenda as presented minus item number D.
Thank you. And we have a second over here. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. Approval of the minutes from the June 13th meeting. Everybody's had a chance to review those.
Indeed.
We have a motion.
Move to approve as submitted.
I'll second.
Thank you.
So,
Wow.
Oh, that's nice, huh? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good.
Move to
Old business, so we do have one item to mention. We have a guest here today, Andrea Martin. She'll be on the planning board. She has not been sworn in yet, but she's been appointed. Was it a city appointment or county? City appointment. Welcome.
Does she
Okay.
bring anything, any treats?
Yeah.
No? What?
Well, your
Yeah.
first meeting, yeah, it's like
Pizza.
brownies or homemade cookies.
Cookies, something. Okay,
Well,
I'm writing that down. We have recordings.
it's only when we're here till 9 o'clock at night that we order in the pizza. We're ready. Okay, first item, we have a standard rezoning on Crest Road.
I will do my best, Matt Manley here. An attempt to fill in. So the first is a standard rezoning on Crest Road. This rezoning is the result of an annexation request. So at the July City Council meeting, the first step in the annexation process was taken. And the second step in the annexation process will occur at the August meeting. Within 60 days of an annexation, the city has to rezone the property. The property is considered unzoned once annexed until the city does. So we're working to align the two. So the parcel you can see highlighted on red in this right there on Crest Road near the Upward Road corridor. See some of the information about the proposal. So the proposed zoning is I-1 light industrial. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. The acreage is nearly 20 acres. It's not mapped on our future land use map, but it is immediately adjacent to the regional activity center identified around the Upward Road corridor and Upward Road exit. Yeah, that shows up a lot better on your all's screen. This is the Upward Road Planning District. This parcel is actually just outside the Upward Road Planning District. So you can see the edge of the parcel here and the edge of the Upward Road Planning District as defined by the city. And sewer is available to the parcel. As we've talked about before for some of the recent annexations and rezonings we've had in this area, Upward Road and CHMU were established around the same time for this corridor along Upward Road. This is current land use and zoning for the parcel. So you're actually looking at the county zoning. The parcel is currently zoned Henderson County Industrial, as are a number of properties in the area. You can see kind of the chunk of industrial zoning here and here. And then as you approach Howard Gap Road and Upward Road, you have additional industrial zoning, and then also some community commercial along the Upward Road corridor, the regional commercial around the highway, and residential moving to the south and east of the site. These are some images of the current site. It is a wooded site along Crest Road. With some cleared areas. I believe it was an old farm or homestead. Currently vacant. On the future land use map for the county, it is designated as Henderson County Urban Services Area and is adjacent again to our regional activity center, and for that matter to the county's regional activity center. The subject property, let's see, county's future land use map designates the subject properties northeast and southwest as urban service areas where residential density is to be maximized based on the availability of utilities. Small portion of the subject property and parcels to the west are designated as industrial in that future land use map. And properties east of Crest Road and to the south are subject of the subject property are designated Henderson County Rural Open Space and Agriculture. So as this, in considering a rezoning, we consider our 6 items, the first of which is comprehensive plan consistency. Again, proposed property is outside of our future land use map, but it is adjacent to Regional Activity Center. And that designation states the following goals to meet the large-scale retail needs of Hendersonville residents while encouraging mixed-use walkable design through redevelopment and infill projects. The land use and development chapter goes on to provide additional strategies, including expanding the city's ETJ to include land expected to experience significant growth pressure, to annex developed and developing areas in a contiguous manner that promotes fiscal responsibility for the city, and to encourage annexations that improve the land use balance in the city of Hendersonville. Natural environmental resources chapter has some relevant points, as this site does have a stream and existing woodlands. The second criteria considered for rezoning relates to compatibility. In this case, we've got a subject property in a lightly developed area in close proximity to the interstate. We've seen a good bit of development in this area. There's a mix of large parcels and significant open space remaining, but we've also, as you all know, the Upward Road exit is experiencing a significant amount of development. Third criteria is changed conditions. Again, I'd reference the Upward Road corridor and the I-26 interchange and the activity that we've seen in that area recently. You know, the property is currently zoned industrial, and the addition of industrial zoning holds the potential to provide for additional employment opportunities within the city. The site will be served by city water and sewer service. Crest Road is classified as a minor thoroughfare in our comp plan, and it is maintained by NCDOT. And the last one there, the site is heavily wooded and features a blue line stream. So we have a draft comp plan consistency statement. The proposed industrial zoning presents an opportunity to improve the land use balance as called for in Chapter 8 of the city's 2030 comprehensive plan. And we have some rationale for approval. The proposed zoning is compatible with surrounding land uses. The proposed zoning presents an opportunity for additional employment, and the proposed zoning generally aligns with the existing county zoning for the parcel. And some draft ideas for rationale for denial, which would include proposed zoning would be incompatible with future residential development in the area. And that is the presentation there. I stand by to answer any questions that you all might have.
Thank you, Lou. Does anybody have questions for staff?
Not one you can answer. What are they gonna do with it?
What's that?
Property.
Remember, we're not allowed to consider it
I'm
because
just
it's a standard rezoning.
curious.
We have to consider all the
No,
uses.
it's fine. I just was curious. That's all.
U.S. Army bombing range.
That's
So I do have a question. Who chose the I-1? Was that the city or was that the applicant?
That is a good question. I don't know if Matt can, we chose that.
It was staff.
It was staff. And that I can say that was based on the existing industrial zoning on the parcel. And the applicant who was pursuing the annexation for future development is interested in developing something that for our purposes would most effectively fit within an I-1 rezoning. So, and given that that was the existing zoning on the site.
Right, but it is, so I guess it seems like industrial is our loosest zoning area. That's even where we allow adult entertainment. And it's right next
I believe that's a special use no matter where it is, but.
right next to a school. So it just seemed to me like it didn't really fit, and that's why I was asking who chose it.
It was staff based on what we saw in the annexation request and based on the existing zoning. So it's zoned I-1. It's zoned the equivalent of I-1 today.
Currently.
Yeah, so the county zoning on the parcel is industrial. So it's not really a change in the zoning I'm from that perspective. In fact, our industrial zoning has some increased standards in comparison to the county's industrial
But
zone.
we only have one industrial. 'Cause
We do
you
only
mentioned
have
light-
I-1.
You mentioned light industrial. in
That's
your
correct.
Presentation. Do we have two industrial?
No, we do not. It's
Okay.
I-1 only.
So there would be no,
There's no differentiation in the I-1 zoning that we have in the zoning code would be what was applicable to the
Right.
project site,
because we do have something called light manufacturing.
which is a use,
Which is a
which is
use.
permitted within not only I-1, but some other zoning districts in addition to the
Okay.
I-1.
Okay, and then
I would,
if it gets rezoned I-1, it would not have the 50,000 square foot.
for certain
conditional
uses.
Use.
So some of our, if you'll recall, when we did the 50,000, that was specifically for uses that fell under a manufacturing category and a recruitment category. It was not all of the uses listed within I-1. So there are, I use concrete plant because it's the easiest one, but a concrete plant that exceeds 50,000 square feet would still have to go through the CZD process.
Mhm.
The uses that were permitted for the I-1 to not require the 50,000 square foot were specific to the types of uses that we might find ourselves recruiting industries for.
Mhm.
So that was a little, it is more targeted. It's not a blanket exclusion for all uses within I-1 to avoid the 50,000 square foot trigger. And we could pull that list up of the difference between which ones do trigger that and which don't.
Mhm.
That's spelled out in the zoning code. I don't have that quite memorized, but I do know concrete plants is one that is not.
Asphalt plant.
Yeah, that was not. I don't even think we have that as a use that's permitted anywhere.
But
within
no,
the
you
city.
can't have a slaughterhouse, right? So I guess my big concern is that the neighbors know that it's zoned industrial now. It's going to being looked at as industrial. So they're thinking, well, no big deal. But then all of a sudden, a manufacturing plant could go in that's larger than 50,000 square feet with no review process. Is that
That's my
correct?
understanding. Yeah.
That would be correct.
That would be correct. And that is the case today.
That is the case today. So
Yes.
Henderson County doesn't have a review process.
Doesn't have a CZD trigger
doesn't
for
have-
square footage.
Well, they don't even do conditional zoning in the county.
They do have conditional zoning, but they don't have a square footage trigger.
They do not have a square footage trigger. Okay.
No.
All right. That answers my questions. Thank you. No other questions for staff? All right. Is the applicant present?
The city.
I don't, the city is the applicant in this
City is the applicant. It
because
says here that it's the U.S. Army.
They're the owners.
they're the property owners.
They're the property owners.
But
They
so,
requested the annexation, so they hook
Correct.
up the city sewer.
Right.
The
and
city-
when an annexation is requested, we have to zone the property.
Okay. Well, if we don't have the applicant here to make a presentation, we're going to go ahead and open up public comment at this point. Is there anybody in the room that would like to speak about this application? Anybody on the Zoom call? Anybody on the Zoom call that would like to speak about this application? Go ahead and raise your hand.
Mr. Fitch, you've been unmuted, sir.
Yes, Ken Fitch, 1046 Patton Street. Yes, the question is, with this rezoning, is it essentially development by right? And would there be any kind of review of any of the issues that might occur? Of course, I mean, some will look at the photographs and have concern about deforestation. So the question is the extent of any protection for existing vegetation under the ordinance requirements for this zoning. So, but one must comment, it's extra issue here is that the city is the applicant, and one does seem to recollect that the use that generated the city request involved a project that envisioned significant landscaping for their project. So, I mean, one is less concerned in that regard, but the degree to which there is review by anyone of what is going to happen is a concern that many would have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fitch. Anybody else on the Zoom call? If you'd like to speak, go ahead and raise your hand and we'll unmute you.
I'm not seeing any additional hands.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comment at this point and have our discussion. What are you thinking, Peter?
I'm just wondering what's going to happen with the National Guard building on Spartanburg Highway. It's okay, never mind. Not appropriate. We're good. It's out there. I know the area, so.
Any thoughts? That's my only concern is that, you know, something would just kind of sneak under the radar in that it's already zoned industrial. It's going to be zoned industrial, so nobody's really looking at it. And then all of a sudden, by right, somebody could build a 50,000 square foot manufacturing facility. It's not something you'd really necessarily want in your backyard.
No, there's always already industrial.
It is industrial now, but it's wood.
It's more restrictive under
wooded.
the city industrial
Yeah,
than it is.
this
under
is a
county.
small.
It's
step
more
forward, is it
restrictive.
not?
Yeah.
Because I didn't compare, I read the industrial zoning uses in the city zoning ordinance, but I didn't read the county.
The biggest one is the one Lou mentioned, which is there's no trigger for 50,000 square foot.
Well, we removed ours as well recently,
Only for some purposes, not for everything.
not for everything, right? Okay, and this would allow for a boarding kennel for,
For chiropractors, yes.
I'm just saying, it could be something that folks might not want in their backyard, that's all I'm saying.
And why did they build near industrial property?
Right.
Well, you know, that whole area is a mix of stuff to begin with. I mean, it's, take your pick. It's all there.
So to answer Mr. Fitch's questions, there would be a review process for certain uses.
Sizes.
And is there a tree board review for anything?
So the process would be the city's zoning compliance review process. And for a project, depending on size and scale, that would at the very least involve an administrative review of a site plan, unless it was a very small project under 5,000 square feet. But anything beyond 5,000 square feet would include a site plan review. And at 20,000 square feet, it would come to the planning board for an administrative review. And then depending on the use, at 50,000 square feet, it could potentially trigger a conditional zoning. But that with I-1, as we've all noted, is use specific. It would still come to the planning board for an administrative review if it were a use that was permitted without a conditional rezoning. But it would not be the legislative review that you all are familiar with that relates to conditional zoning. If it does not trigger conditional zoning, it does not trigger tree board review. And we currently don't have any zoning standards for tree preservation on existing sites. We have carrots, but we don't have any requirements. So basically what I mean by that is
Incentives.
there are incentives within the code for preserving trees in terms of getting credits for plantings that are required if you do preserve trees, but there's nothing that says you must preserve X number of trees on site. So I hope that answers that
It does.
question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. All right, there's no more discussion. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion for recommending approval. I move planning board recommend city council adopt an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city of Hendersonville, changing the zoning designation of the subject property, pins 9587-68-8771, from Henderson County Industrial Zoning District to City of Hendersonville I-1 Industrial Zoning District based on the following. One, the petition is found to be consistent with the City of Hendersonville 2030 Comprehensive Plan based on the information from the staff analysis, and because the proposed industrial zoning presents an opportunity to improve the land use balance as called for in Chapter 8 of the city's 2030 Comprehensive Plan. Two, additionally, we find this petition to be reasonable and in the public interest based on the information from the staff analysis public hearing, and because one, the proposed zoning is compatible with surrounding land uses, and two, proposed zoning presents an opportunity for additional employment. And three, furthermore, we recommend designating the future land use of the parcel as Regional Activity Center.
Thank you. We have a second.
Sure, I'll second it.
Okay. Second.
It was well stated.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Item B, we have a standard rezoning on Fleming Street. And Mr. Riddle is the applicant. This is a site that we looked at previously, and I think it's been subdivided since then. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is for 1027 Fleming Street rezoning. This is a standard rezoning request from Mr. Riddle, as you've noted. And the existing zoning for the parcel is MIC special use, now conditional zoning. The proposed zoning is just MIC. We had reviewed this area, this parcel previously in 2021, I believe it was. The parcel was subdivided via a minor subdivision. So what we are discussing today is a 0.9 acre site, basically 1 acre site with the existing structure. So in the original MIC special use, there was one existing structure and a proposal for a variety of additional structures on the adjacent to what's now 2.2 some acres. This is just a rezoning of a parcel that was created by a minor subdivision of the existing building. The remaining 2.2 acres will remain in MIC special use and would require a rezoning in the future for development to occur there as the zoning permit for that original special use district has expired. So you can see that a little bit more clearly here. The parcel in question is highlighted in yellow. It's let's say 1 acre. 1 acre, and does include an existing commercial building. Surrounding zoning, you see C3 to the north of the site, C3 zoning district, which I'll note prior to the MIC special use district, the existing building on the site was previously zone C3. To the south along Fleming Street, you see primarily MIC, MIC CZD, and MIC special use, along with the planned institutional development associated with the parcel that the county had originally purchased for the Hendersonville High School project. To the west, R6 and then R15, kind of already noted what we have to the east with the Hendersonville High School property. This is a list of MIC versus what the current MIC special use district permits in terms of uses. You see obviously that the MIC permits a larger number of uses, which is typical for a standard base zoning district, whereas the special use was more specific. These are some sites, photos of the existing site, the existing commercial property. You can see that it has an existing parking lot and basically, I think has served as a medical office building. Future land use, the parcel is split between Neighborhood Activity Center, which is identified along the Asheville Highway Corridor, and Urban Institutional. And there is also an activity node. That black circle is an activity node within our future land use. Urban Institutional is due to the proximity of downtown and is targeted for medical and educational institutions in the area. Obviously, we have Party prominently located in the high school, not too far off. And then you do have medium intensity residential or neighborhood to the west. So looking at comp plan consistency, Matt put this slide together. There's a lot of stuff on that first section for future land use. I'll note that it's broadly consistent there. MIC does not include any design standards. So you see under strategy LU 11.4, a variety of notes in terms of inconsistency. That's simply because MIC doesn't include any architectural design standards, and the comprehensive plan does call for those in terms of development guidelines within urban institutional. It is consistent, however, as it relates to the types of uses and primary recommended land uses, which are up towards the top there. The area is also a priority growth area, and population and housing chapter encourages infill opportunities and mixed land use patterns. No particularly relevant elements within natural and environmental resources or cultural, historic resources, community facilities, or water resources. Transportation and circulation chapters had some minor points. In terms of compatibility, the existing office building is compatible with surrounding area and the Party campus. The uses within the base MIC zoning align with the area and the surrounding uses. MIC is consistent with the type of development found along the Fleming Street corridor. And as the previously approved MIC special use district failed to move forward, this is the changed condition. The continued use of the existing structure for the variety of uses permitted within MIC requires the base zoning be reestablished. And public interest, the rezoning facilitates productive reuse of an existing structure. This is right in town, so it will be served by all city services. And in terms of effect on natural environment, this is a currently developed site. So minimal impacts there. So draft comprehensive plan consistency statement you'll see before you. And basically that this is in alignment with the goals and strategies of urban institutional, which calls for primary recommended land uses, which align with the MIC base district zoning. Couple of rationale for approval. This is the existing primary zoning district in the Party Hospital area. The property is located in an area designated as a priority infill area, and the subject property contains an existing office building. And in terms of rationale for potential denial, we have that rezoning would permit a greater number of uses than those approved as part of the special use permit. And that is all I have. Are there questions?
Questions? But before we get started with questions, Tamara has asked to be recused from this
Because
agenda.
Andrew Riddle's company is our client.
Okay.
We're the architect.
And you're the architect on record.
And will you all take, remembering my Angie Beaker training, will you all take a vote on her request to be recused?
Okay, let's, so we've had a board member asked to be recused from this agenda item because she's the architect on record for the project.
It's not for this project though, right?
That's Andrew.
No, that's Matthew.
Oh, that's Matt.
Sorry.
Um,
I'm just
we
trying
are
to clarify.
We're doing a site plan for the whole site right
Okay.
now. We're under contract. Yeah.
It is, yeah.
Okay, so we need to take a vote on that. All in favor of the
Aye.
refusal? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We did establish a quorum prior to the refusal, so we're still good. Okay,
Yeah.
any questions for staff? Go ahead, Neil.
I've got one quick one, Lou. We're only looking at the roughly 1 acre that the building is on, slightly contiguous spaces. And this would punt the question of how to zone the remaining 2.35 acres down the road.
That's correct.
Okay, just wanted to confirm.
Yeah, those would remain MIC special use and will require some sort of rezoning before they can be developed, even if it's to bring back the original site plan and just redo that, which I don't think that's the intent, but some sort of, that will end up in front of you again.
Thank you.
That's something.
And I guess my question, so we're required to reestablish a base zoning because the special use project never was developed.
So,
Why would we not be looking at the other parcels at the same time?
well, the primary reason I think is that the other parcel may require either a conditional zoning because there will be questions about details as it relates to how it interacts with the surrounding residential. I think previously, the last time this was brought to the planning board, it was the entire parcel. And the desire was the request was for MIC's base zoning for the entire parcel, which was not, there were concerns with that, I'll say, both from the planning board and I think from the public. This, following that conversation, and Andrew, the developer, can speak to this better than I can, but, or the developer's representative, but we'd had a conversation with the fact that the building, one building was existing and in place. Rezoning to MIC would allow them to use that for a wider variety of uses today and could allow them then to move forward with a plan for the rest of the parcel.
Okay, so when it was subdivided recently, it was subdivided back into 2 parcels or the
Right.
original 5? Because there were
No,
originally
it was-
5 parcels.
It was just a minor subdivision, just divided into 2 parcels.
Okay,
One with the existing building on it and one with the remaining 2.25 acre approximately.
because in the back, it was all originally residential.
Right.
Back towards Fleming, it was originally MIC.
Right.
Okay. All right, any other questions from staff? Okay, do we have the applicant or a representative here that would like to?
I mean, I'm just here to answer any questions that you guys have. Yeah, I don't know if you guys have any questions further.
Any questions for the applicant?
We covered a lot of them several months ago. when
We did. It was
first
just a
came
few
up,
months
you know.
back that we talked about this particular property. So you still own the other parcel, though, the other?
No, the other parcel is not owned by Andrew. He just owns the 0.98 that the building is on.
Okay,
So that 2.28 is not like, it's owned by a separate person. So, and it's actually owned by the original owner. He went in and bought just a subsection of that original parcel that the building is sitting on. So.
Interesting.
Is it safe to assume that his intent is still to preserve the historical marker there at the northeast corner?
Yeah, so the building is staying and that kind of stuff is staying. He's just wanting to have this done so the building can be leased. And by taking that special use away, that opens up more opportunities for possible tenants to lease the space and stuff.
any other questions?
The building has already undergone an exterior renovation. Those pictures are actually old. But so, I mean, I have new pictures, but yeah, the building has been remodeled and it's in the process of being leased. So that's why the special use is wanting to go away.
Fred, you're talking about those rock pillars.
Yeah, there's the rock pillar at the northeast corner of the property. That's the memorial to Fassifern School.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that it's still there. So there's nothing, I mean, he doesn't have any intention of taking that away. So
So there is no intention of removing the historic stone pillars.
none to my knowledge. You know, I'm not Andrew, so I'm not gonna, but I can tell you, as far as I know, there's no,
Andrew's fairly historically oriented.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a pretty nice guy, so I highly doubt he's one.
Will
No,
will
I
you,
didn't take that
will you
step.
state your name and address for us, just for the
My name is
record?
Matthew Rogers, and I live at 242 Windsor Forest Circle in Fletcher. So,
You're representing Mr. Riddle.
yes, I am.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll go ahead and open up public comment then. If you're in the room and you'd like to speak, or if you're on the Zoom call and you'd like to speak, use the raise your hand feature. And we'll unmute you.
I'm not seeing anyone raising their hand.
All right, we'll go ahead and close public comment then. It was MIC, if the request is for MIC, it's just been subdivided. I wish we were looking at the other parcel right now while we were looking at it though. Just,
Separate issue.
right,
Then we would be here till 8 o'clock.
then we would be here till 8 o'clock, right?
There was a real
But at
McGill.
least this will move the whole thing forward. So
Right.
you know, it'll set a standard. If you've already redone the building according to the young man
Mhm,
and exterior, and that sets a precedent for the rest of it. So
right.
just a thought.
Makes it productive again.
Yeah.
It seems to be wasted now.
Right. Yeah, a lot of it's vacant. I think there's one tenant down below in the back.
She's gone.
Is she?
She's on 1 Hayward Road now.
Oh, okay.
You can't read this.
So there's
I
nobody.
just forgot her name, the shoulder doctor.
Mhm.
Hall, Dr. Hall, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's prime real estate for medical offices, that type of thing, and it's not being utilized, so. Do we have a motion?
Take it, Peter. Go ahead.
You look eager.
Yes.
I missed last meeting. I get two this time.
Okay, you
Suggested motions for recommending approval. I move the planning board recommend city council adopt an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city of Hendersonville, changing the zoning designation of the subject property pins 9569602887 from MIC-SU, which is medical institutional cultural special use zoning district, to MIC medical institutional cultural zoning district based on the following. Number one, the petition is found to be consistent with the city of Hendersonville 2030 comprehensive plan based on the information from the staff analysis, and because the goals and strategies of LU-12 urban institutional calls for primary recommended land uses which align with the proposed MIC zoning. Two, furthermore, we find this petition to be reasonable and in the public interest based on information from staff analysis, public hearings, and because one, MIC is the zoning district established for the area surrounding Party Hospital. Two, the property is located in an area designated as a priority infill area, unquote, according to the city's comprehensive plan. And number three, the subject property contains an existing office building and is well suited to house a range of uses permitted in the MIC.
We have a second. Second, Mr. Glassman. Dr. Glassman. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously as well. Okay, then we have one more item on our agenda.
Do we have to vote on letting Ms. Peacock return?
Oh, do we have to vote on letting her return?
No, I just
Imagine.
returned.
I think she can just return. I think you only have to vote on the
Just
recusal.
wanted to make sure.
No, I appreciate it.
Okay, this is a zoning text amendment to allow
dry.
animal hospitals and clinics in the MIC zoning district.
That's correct.
I wonder if it's related to the last item.
Probably not.
Of course not.
So it is, the applicant is Mr. Riddle, and the zoning districts impacted would be MIC. The proposed text amendment is to add animal hospitals and clinics as a permitted use in the MIC. And a couple of reasons for that. The use is permitted in 10 other similar mixed-use districts. and the proposed use is consistent with the variety of other types of uses permitted within the MIC. The Planning Board Legislative Committee did meet on this June 21st, 2022. There were 2 members in attendance, and there was a discussion of the impact, variety of questions. Matt can speak to this conversation, as can, I believe, the members who were there. I think a main point of discussion was outdoor kennels and an assurance that those would not be permitted, which they are not as a rule for the text looking for the name, animal hospitals and clinics for that use. No motion was made, only discussion. In terms of the staff recommended changes to Article 5 for 510 MIC zoning district classification, the addition of animal hospitals and clinics, as long as they contain no outdoor kennels. So that is the primary language there, listed within the permitted uses. Matt had also noted that in the I-1 zoning district classification, there was a misnomer related to animal hospitals and clinics being subject to supplementary standards. There are no supplementary standards for animal hospitals and clinics within section 16-4. So this is kind of a cleanup, which just clarifies that animal hospitals and clinics are permitted in I-1 as long as they contain no outdoor kennels. Outdoor kennels, I believe, are permitted in I-1, but as a special use. So it would require BOA approval. Let's see, looking at the rezoning standards, considering that this is a little bit, you look to comprehensive plan consistency. MIC is most often found in the future land use urban institutional, and primary recommended land uses there would be offices. And that does seem to align here. Staff's thoughts are that animal hospitals and clinics are consistent with this goal for a mix of uses and integration with downtown. Strategies within the land use and development chapter include encouraging infill development, redevelopment, reviewing zoning standards, and revising as necessary to enable compatible infill projects, considering a full range of short and long-term impacts when reviewing zone change applications and other proposals that introduce land use changes. Strategy LU 3.6 notes that updating the zoning code to ensure conformance with the comp plan. The zoning code is the city's primary regulatory tool, and that amendments to the code and map will be necessary to reflect comp plan recommendations and ensure orderly growth and development. Population and housing and natural and environmental resources had no applicable components, as nor did any of the other chapters that I would pull out. Compatibility, that is not the right language there on the slide, so I apologize for that. But the second criteria considered for rezoning, in this case, animal clinics and hospitals is a medical use, albeit not for humans, with similar types of impacts as a medical office, personal services. And so many of the types of impacts that you might see, aside from furry animals, would be similar. Changed conditions. In this case, we're looking at population growth within Hendersonville and an increase in demand for services, including those of veterinarian. So ignoring the slides again, the fourth criteria is public interest. In this case, the expansion of animal hospitals and clinics to the MIC would place the use within an area already serving medical needs, and that it would also place the use within close walkable proximity to residential uses and other services. This location, MIC zoning district, as a broad district, is served by the city services completely. MIC is, as we noted in the previous item, almost entirely located in immediate proximity to Pardee Hospital. No known impacts to the effect on natural environment. So getting to the draft consistency statement, the 2030 comprehensive plan, land use and development chapter calls for the city to consider short and long-term impacts on compatibility with existing development and further recommends the consideration be given to determine if an application demonstrates a clear public purpose. We do find this zoning text amendment to be consistent. And then we have a couple of draft rationale for approval here. And some draft, this should be draft rationale for denial.
Any
With
questions?
that, any
Any
questions?
questions? Go ahead, Neil.
This will be quick. As you know, I'm very much in favor of this. I'm surprised it went this long before somebody realized this needed an amendment. Your thoughts, Lou, please. We did specify as long as they contain no outdoor kennels. How much wiggle room is there for somebody to say a fenced in running area for dogs during the day is not a kennel, or an underground fence is not a kennel? And therefore
I mean,
allow dogs to run free, but potentially make noise, which is why we have no outdoor kennel in there in the first place.
so I think, you know, from a staff perspective, if we were reviewing this, any site plan which indicated that there was outdoor, anything other than like place for the dog to go to the bathroom, which really typically isn't even designated. And every vet office kind of has a sign in the yard. But any sort of specific fenced in outdoor area, we would be questioning that as a, you know, place where the pets would be getting stored. So I would think that that would be something that from a staff perspective, we would not be approving that. You know, I can imagine that many vets would include some sort of indoor, you know, lots of times I know with my vet, I can drop the dog off in the morning and they keep the dog, but they don't have any outdoor kennel.
Right.
The dog's staying inside the space somewhere. So yeah, I would think any
Okay.
kind of outdoor area, we would be asking what that would be for. And the idea that there is no outdoor kennel is there is no outdoor animal storage
Okay,
permitted.
fair enough. Thank you.
Yeah, because at the committee meeting, we talked about there would probably be animals staying there overnight. In other words, if you had to
It could
take
be.
a dog or
My
cat
vet
in for
has had my
surgery,
dog there occasionally overnight.
right? If you take
But
them for
indoors.
surgery, they sometimes will spend the night depending on the
Sure.
severity of the surgery.
But my vet, well, to your reference, will physically take the dog outside for a leash every 2, 3, 4 hours to empty its bowels and bladder. Not let it run.
Yeah, I'm surprised too that this wasn't already allowed in that.
Yeah, it's kind of a no-brainer to me.
The thing I thought of though, after the committee meeting was that, that there are now these emergency 24-hour clinics. So you could have traffic coming at, 2, 3, 4 in the morning if it were a 24-hour facility,
As you would on Fleming Street as the result. of
because the
hospital.
emergency room is right up there too. But, and traditionally MIC is around the hospital, which is open 24/7, 365. So. Any other questions for? Luke? All right, does the applicant want to speak about this one?
So I can
Okay.
answer questions
You
based on
wanna
that
speak about
too.
this one, or
Do what? I'm sorry.
you want to speak about
No, I mean, he did a
The
great job. If you
application.
guys have any questions, I can answer.
any questions? Is the entire building being proposed as an animal hospital?
No, sir.
Just a portion of it?
Be a huge animal
It
hospital.
would be.
But I can also tell you, like, from our specific circumstances, there will be no overnight staying of any animals. This is more of like a, you go to your doctor and you just get a checkup. You're not going to your doctor to This is a clinic, not a hospital. But just with that wording, they're just wanting to put hospital in there. But for us specifically, our interest is just in the clinic aspect of that.
Understood, but this is a zoning.
Right.
We
Yes,
don't
we don't
amend
Yeah,
that.
this isn't, this, I was just clarifying that too.
Right,
Yeah.
this board has to look at the entire district.
Mhm, mhm.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, we'll go ahead and open public comment. Does anybody in the room wish to speak? How about on the Zoom call? Anybody on the Zoom call wish to speak about this text amendment? Raise your hand and we'll unmute you.
Ken Fitch, 1046 Patton Street. The prohibition on outdoor kennels seems wise. But one question is the exact definition of the term incidental use. And perhaps there should be consideration of distance from residential uses adjacent, given possible ambient or intermittent noise from such incidental use. I mean, now this may not be the question with the site we're talking about specifically, but elsewhere it can be, it might be an issue with adjacent residential uses. And just from personal experience, that many residential areas have canine residents, and the sudden appearance of a new canine generates a symphony of sound. So distance and buffering from residential becomes desirable. Now, that's not an issue clearly at the site that we're speaking of specifically, but for other areas, there might be issues that would need to be addressed. So buffering and distance might be something to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fitch. Anybody else on the Zoom call? No? Okay, we'll go ahead and
Doesn't look like
close public comment at this time. What is our buffer standard?
We do have a buffer for residential to MIC. I'm gonna look at Tyler. He might be able to help.
It seems like we discussed that
It's-
for that property that was conditionally zoned.
Yeah, so it's a 10-foot type B buffer, which is a planting buffer. There's no fencing there, but there is a 10-foot
10-foot type B.
planted buffer
Right.
for any line, any property line where MIC abuts residential.
I guess I'm less concerned about dogs barking than many people.
Yeah.
Now
Half the
you're
rest of the
30 seconds
population.
into the clinic, 30 seconds coming out of the clinic.
Right.
Um,
I mean, it seems like a type B buffer and 10-foot would be appropriate to me. Need the shrubs because
Oh, yes.
somebody's gonna have to
Oh,
walk their legs
my,
somewhere.
my dog is female, so shrubs, no big deal.
Tasty.
Okay, any other discussion among the board here? If not, do we have a motion?
Hey, Peter's on a roll. Go for it.
I get a vacation next time. Anyway, not a problem. Suggested motions for recommending approval. I move the planning board recommend city council adopt an ordinance amending the official city of Hendersonville zoning ordinance, Article 5, Article V or 5? Article, it's V, but.
Yes, that's 5.
Okay, Article 5, zoning district classifications, section 5-1, 5-10-1, and section 5-12-1, quote, permitted uses, unquote, and Article XIL, definition of terms, section 12.2, definition of commonly used terms and words based on the following. Number 1, the petition is found to be consistent with the City of Hendersonville 2030 comprehensive plan based on the information from the staff analysis and the public hearing, and because the 2030 comprehensive plan land use and development chapter calls for the city to consider short and long-term impacts and compatibility with existing development, and further recommends the consideration be given to determine if an application demonstrates a clear public purpose. Number 2, we find this petition to be reasonable and in the public interest based on the information from the staff analysis and the public hearing, and because 1, the petition addresses additional opportunities for the provision of services for pets and other animals within the City of Hendersonville's zoning jurisdiction. Yay, team. Number 2, the proposed use aligns with the intent of MIC zoning district to serve as a medical district.
I'll second that one.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously as well. Item D was scratched from the agenda. Other business. Matt shared an article with me recently, and I don't know, did the rest of the board get it about?
I'm not sure that we did get it out to the rest of the board. I can speak to it a little bit and then
Sure, that'd be great.
we can share it.
Nothing, Jeff.
Okay, well, there's an article he shared with me that I think was going, or is going to be shared with the rest of the board about zoning. If it didn't create it, it adds to the housing crisis. And the state is looking at HB 365, House Bill 365.
Yeah,
I believe, middle housing.
I don't remember the exact bill number, but yeah, this was it was an article from the American Planning Association, North Carolina Legislative Committee, which pays attention to what's happening at the legislature. And last year, approximately, give or take, a bill was generated. Actually, Mr. Edwards, our local representative, was a part of the original bill. And it was a missing middle housing bill. It included basically a requirement that any single family zoning that included single family must also permit duplex, triplex, and quadplexes. So
If they were served by water and sewer.
if they were served by water and sewer, that's correct. Yeah. And there were some other standards in it. And basically, this is a conversation that's occurring at a national level. The report that we'll share is from the APA as a way to jumpstart the conversation at the local planning board level, that thinking about some of these challenges, if we are not thinking about them, then there may be preemptive state legislation that comes into play to sort of bring these things to fruition. I will note there were a couple of things. So there are 5 main concerns or criticisms about local zoning and development as identified by this article that I'll note. 1, standards that establish single-family detached dwellings as the sole permitted dwelling type within a specific zoning designation. We actually don't have that as the sole use anywhere. Everywhere we permit single-family, we also permit duplexes, but we don't have anything for triplexes or quadplexes. So mandatory minimum lot sizes for residential development that often impact development and infrastructure costs, along with suppressing efficient residential densities. Off-street parking standards for residential development that include excessive minimum standards. And 2 more, development application review procedures, which establish disproportionate barriers to the approval of higher density residential developments. And as it reads in the bill, I mean, think about conditional zoning there, and specifically triggers for conditional zoning. Those are some of the things that the legislature has been discussing. And then development standards and exactions like open space dedication, which increase the cost of residential construction and contribute to the inability of many to enter the housing market. So the general discussion is not necessarily that all of those are blanket bad, but that there are elements of those that create imbalances in the development approval process. And that's a conversation that's been happening nationally. You see a lot of the missing middle conversation, you know, specifically targeting single family residential development. And then those other layers of the cake are in the mix too, in terms of conversation. And I don't know if Matt would want to add any of that. Matt, we're 2 minutes from 5 o'clock. So my only thing is that we're going to try and be done with these poor folks within an hour this month. But
No, I think you covered it well. We could get the article out to everybody. They can look at it, and then we could have some more thoughts and potential, audit of our zoning code. If we wanted to look at some changes we could make to align with some of those strategies, but we'll start with sharing that article.
Is there a segment somewhere that It deals with the impact of density versus traffic pattern and traffic issues.
So, in terms of this conversation, this is about zoning regulation and its impact on affordability and the development of residential. It does not stream into, how infrastructure in a community keeps up with growth, right? And fast growing communities are going to have different concerns than slower growing communities.
Can't move it.
Yeah, yeah. I just got
I
back
did-
from
I did
Italy,
talk to-
Italy.
My client about reducing the parking
Mhm.
in C1. And he said he wants me to apply for the text amendment. So
So C1
Has a-
has,
1.5 spaces.
right, for
So
residential.
we're going to
Okay.
ask to reduce it to 1. Yeah. So that I'll be getting that to you.
So that can be done via a zoning text amendment. I'll just note this since we're talking about it, zoning text amendment. If it were a rezoning, it could also be done through the conditional zoning process. So just a quick note. Standard can be reduced in addition to increased.
The article was it was a fairly quick read. It's 4 or 5 pages, but it's written, so it's very understandable. It talks about national policies and how they affect housing, but it really keys in on how local ordinances have added to the housing crisis.
And one of the things that it notes is that there's a convergence of interests, which means that there's more power behind the interest. And the convergence is that there are affordable housing advocates who are seeing zoning as a problem. And then there's also the building and construction industry and development industry that sees zoning as a challenge. So you have people approaching it from different perspectives who are all seeing it as a challenge. Now, what does that mean for different communities? It means a lot of different things, but the article really is about creating some awareness that this conversation is happening at the state level and that local planning and city councils may want to be thinking about it also.
We'll send that out. Right?
Yes, we will send that to the board.
Okay, great.
Lou, quick question if I may.
Yeah.
And Matt, are you still on the line?
Yes.
Okay, have you been able to make any headway with Gary Eagleton about prefab housing standards and maybe amending our zoning code to allow more of those within city limits?
We,
So Matt-
we, go ahead, Lou. What were you gonna say?
Well, I was just going to say, Matt and I have discussed that. I'm not familiar with the individual you just referenced, but I know
A friend
we've
of mine from the manufactured housing industry.
Yeah, we've talked about the need to revisit those. I wouldn't say that we've put pen to paper on any kind of amendments to this.
No, and I actually haven't been able to touch base with that gentleman either. But hope to as we have more bandwidth to be able to tackle those issues.
We do recognize that as an area of interest and have heard from a few planning board members about that. So
Great, good discussion. All right, do we have a motion to adjourn? So moved. Second, all in favor?
I was just gonna walk
Out
out.
of here. Thank you.